Hello, fellow gamers, and welcome to RPG PhD. I'm Dr. Ben, and tonight we dive into the shadows of tabletop RPGs. We're exploring the spine-chilling world of horror-themed campaigns, unraveling the secrets to crafting an atmosphere that will keep your players on the edge of their seats. So, light your candles and lock your doors as we delve into the art of running a horror RPG. Horror RPGs are a unique beast. Unlike standard fantasy games where heroes often confront their foes with steel and spells, horror games thrive on the unknown and the unknowable. The key to a successful horror campaign is not just in the monsters lurking in the dark, but in the atmosphere you create, the tension you build, and the emotions you evoke. Let's break down how to achieve this. First and foremost, setting is crucial. Your environment should breathe unease, whether it's a fog-laden Victorian city, an abandoned asylum, or a quiet town with a dark secret. Your setting is effectively a character in its own right. Use detailed descriptions to create a vivid, immersive world. Employ sensory language. Let your players hear the creaking of the floorboards, smell the mustiness of decay, and feel the chill in the air. When it comes to horror RPGs, the environment you create is not just a backdrop, it's a catalyst for fear, suspense, and storytelling. Setting the stage in a horror game is about crafting an atmosphere that envelops the players, making them feel as if they're stepping into a world where every shadow and sound could be a harbinger of doom. Here's how to effectively set stage for a horror campaign. Choose a compelling location. The setting is the stage on which your horror story unfolds, whether it's an eerie abandoned hospital, a foggy lakeside town with a cursed history, or a secluded mansion with a malevolent presence. The location itself should inspire fear and curiosity. Each setting should have its own character and backstory, which can gradually unfold and deepen the horror as the story progresses. Employ rich descriptive language. Horror thrives on the senses. Describe not just what the players see, but also what they hear, smell, feel, and even taste. Talk about the way the air grows colder as they enter the room, the soft whisper of voices from an unknown source, or the faint, disturbingly sweet smell of decay that permeates a haunted house. These details help create a visceral experience. Atmospheric elements. Use lighting and sound to your advantage if you play in person. Dim lights or play under candlelight to literally darken the room and set a foreboding mood. Background sounds or music can enhance the setting. Distant thunder, the creaking of a house settling, or the unsettling cry of an owl can all heighten the sense of immersion. Interactive elements. Incorporate elements that players can interact with, which also contribute to the setting. Old diaries, torn photographs, mysterious artifacts, and cryptic symbols can all be physically created and handed to players during the game. These props not only enhance the realism of the game world, but also provide tangible puzzles and clues for the players to investigate. Building anticipation and foreshadowing. Setting the stage also involves the narrative technique of foreshadowing. Drop subtle hints about what's to come through legends heard from NPCs, unsettling dreams experienced by characters, or eerie parallels with past events. This not only builds tension but also layers the story, making the gameplay more engaging. Dynamic environments. Change the environment as the story progresses. An initially safe location can gradually reveal its sinister aspects, or the environment can deteriorate alongside the sanity of the characters. For example, rooms might start to look different, hallways seem longer, or familiar objects take on menacing aspects as the characters delve deeper into the horror. This immersive setting is crucial for a memorable horror RPG as it turns the environment into an active participant in the terror. Horror thrives on pacing. It's about the slow build-up, the suspense. Manage the rhythm of your game to alternate between moments of calm and episodes of intense action. Use quiet moments to set up the scares and let the tension simmer before bringing it to a boil. The key is unpredictability, keeping players anxious about when and how the horror will strike. Pacing and tension are the heartbeat of a horror RPG, providing the rhythmic suspense that keeps players engaged and emotionally invested. The management of these elements can make the difference between a forgettable session and a thrilling experience that players talk about for years. Here's how to master pacing and build tension effectively in your horror campaign. Control the flow of information. Gradually reveal the horror and mysteries of your story. Giving away too much too soon can deflate the suspense, while revealing too little might leave players confused and disengaged. Dole out clues and pieces of the overarching mystery at a pace that keeps players craving more without becoming frustrated. Utilize quiet moments. Not every moment in a horror game should be filled with action or terror. Quiet moments are essential for building tension and giving players a false sense of security. These lulls are opportunities for character development and for players to reflect on the information they've uncovered, which heightens their dread of what's to come. Sudden shifts. Introduce sudden, jarring events that disrupt the calm. This could be anything from an unexpected scream to the lights going out or a character disappearing. These moments should be used sparingly but effectively to shock players and elevate their heart rates. Vary the intensity. Think of your campaign as a series of waves. After building up to a climax, allow for a downturn where players can regroup and prepare for the next challenge. This ebb and flow keep the game from becoming monotonously frightening or overwhelmingly intense, which can numb the players to the horror. Use your in-game time effectively. Manipulate the in-game clock to build tension. For example, as the in-game night approaches, players might feel a growing dread of what comes with darkness. Time-sensitive quests can also add pressure, forcing players to make decisions with potentially dire consequences. Psychological pressure. Incorporate elements that mess with the player's perceptions. Hallucinations, distorted timelines, and unreliable narrators can all contribute to a feeling of unease and tension. When players can't trust their senses or each other, the tension naturally escalates. Escalation through setting. As the campaign progresses, the environments themselves can become more threatening. What started as a creepy, dilapidated house might slowly reveal more sinister areas, such as a basement with unsettling artifacts or an attic with a malevolent presence. Climactic build-up and release. Lead up to a grand, terrifying climax where the stakes are at their highest. This could be the revelation of the main antagonist, a betrayal within the group, or a confrontation with a powerful supernatural entity. Following the climax, provide a resolution that ties up loose ends, offering a satisfactory conclusion to the intense journey. The careful management of pacing and tension not only makes the game more enjoyable, but also deepens the horror elements, making every decision and discovery impactful. Connect the horror to characters' backstories and fears. Personal stakes heighten the horror. Introduce elements that resonate personally with the characters, like phobias, lost loved ones, or dark past secrets. This not only deepens the narrative, but also keeps the players emotionally invested. Emotional engagement is critical in horror RPGs as it transforms the game from a simple series of events into a compelling, immersive story that players are deeply invested in. It involves connecting the game's content and experiences directly to the character's personal fears, hopes, and backgrounds. Here's how to enhance emotional engagement in your horror-themed campaign. Leverage character backstories. Start by integrating elements of each player's character backstory into the main plot. This could involve resurrecting forgotten personal demons, weaving in significant others who might now be in peril or part of the mystery, or confronting characters with their past misdeeds or fears. When the horror touches on something personally significant to the characters, the stakes feel much higher and the emotional impact is greater. Thematic resonance. Choose themes that resonate on a deeper emotional level with the players as well as their characters. Themes like betrayal, loss, or the corruption of innocence can provoke strong emotional responses and drive home the horror elements. For example, a campaign centered around the theme of trust can put characters in situations where they must make difficult decisions about who to believe or rely on, adding layers of tension and emotional complexity. Moral dilemmas. Present the players with choices that have no clear right or wrong answer, but instead test their moral compasses. These dilemmas should challenge the characters' values and force them to make tough decisions that can have lasting consequences. This not only heightens the emotional tension, but also deeply involves players in the narrative outcomes. Fear and phobias. Incorporate the character's specific fears or phobias into the game. This could be anything from claustrophobia, where a character must navigate tight underground passages, to a fear of drowning, featured in a story set by a haunted lake, for example. Encountering these fears can make the horror more personal and intense. Building bonds and breaking them. Encourage the formation of relationships between characters, including friendships, mentorships, or romantic entanglements. As these bonds deepen, put them to the test through the horrors they face together. The potential loss of a close ally or loved one can be a powerful emotional driver, making every danger more urgent and terrifying. Character growth and decline. Show the psychological impact of the horror on the characters over time. Characters might grow stronger and more resilient, or they could start showing signs of mental strain or breakdown. This evolution should reflect the ongoing stresses of the campaign, making the horror feel like it has real, lasting effects. Use of NPCs. Create complex NPCs who can evoke sympathy, mistrust, or fear. Their interactions with the characters can bring about significant emotional reactions and can be used to deliver chilling revelations that alter the course of the story. Safe spaces and sudden violations. Establish perceived safe spaces for the characters to let down their guard. The subsequent violation of these sanctuaries, such as a safe house being invaded by a malevolent force, can be emotionally jarring and enhance the feeling of vulnerability and horror. Horror RPGs often require tweaks to standard gameplay mechanics. Consider implementing rules that emphasize vulnerability, such as limited resources or enhanced consequences for failed actions. Sanity systems, like those in Call of Cthulhu, can add a psychological dimension to your game, making mental resilience just as important as physical strength. Adjusting mechanics and rules is crucial in horror-themed RPGs to effectively convey the atmosphere and challenges unique to the genre. These adjustments help reinforce the themes of vulnerability, uncertainty, and tension that are central to horror settings. Here's how to tailor the mechanics to enhance the horror experience. Sanity and fear mechanics. Integrate sanity metrics or fear checks into your game. Some systems use sanity points to measure psychological stress in response to supernatural horrors or unsettling discoveries. Implementing similar mechanics can add a layer of psychological suspense and consequences for encountering the grotesque or the uncanny. Resource scarcity. Horror settings often emphasize vulnerability through limited resources. You might restrict access to weapons, healing items, or information, forcing players to make tough decisions about when and how to use their precious few resources. This can heighten the tension and the stakes of every encounter. Light and darkness rules. Manipulate visibility and perception through light and darkness, introducing mechanics where darkness can hinder the player's abilities to fight or perceive threats effectively can amplify feelings of helplessness and fear. Consider rules for tools like torches or flashlights that might fail at critical moments, plunging characters into darkness. Critical failures and successes. Enhance the usual critical failure and success mechanics to include more dramatic effects. For instance, a critical failure in a horror game might result in a traumatic outcome that impacts the character's mental or physical state, while a critical success could provide them unexpected insights or an eerie revelation that adds depth to the story. Encounter and escape mechanics. Rethink combat to emphasize avoidance and survival rather than confrontation. Horror often derives from the character's impotence against overwhelming threats. Mechanics that favor stealth, evasion, and managing pursuit levels can be more appropriate and thrilling than straightforward combat. Damage and healing. Adjust how damage and healing work to reflect the grittier, more fragile nature of horror settings. Consider implementing more severe, long-term injury and trauma effects where healing is slow and partial, possibly requiring specific conditions or treatments. Morale and willpower. Implement a morale or willpower system that affects how characters handle fear and stress. Characters might need to make willpower checks to make certain actions when under extreme stress, such as running away from a monster instead of freezing in terror. Environmental hazards. Increase the use and variety of environmental hazards that can affect both players and antagonists. This could include unstable structures, hazardous weather conditions, or areas imbued with malevolent supernatural effects. These hazards should require creative thinking and resource management to navigate. By carefully adjusting the mechanics and rules to suit the horror theme, you create a game environment that supports the suspense and terror inherent in the genre. These changes should challenge the players to think critically and creatively, manage resources wisely, and deal with the psychological impact of the horrors their characters face. Running a horror-themed RPG campaign is an art form. It requires a delicate balance of mood, pacing, and player engagement. But remember, the core of any RPG is shared storytelling. Collaborate with your players, use their feedback, and most importantly, adapt the game to ensure everyone at the table is enthralled and entertained. Thank you for joining me tonight under the Cloak of Darkness. If you're ready to host your own horror RPG, or if you have more tips to share, let us know in the comments section below. And please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more RPG content. Until next time, keep the candles burning and the dice rolling. Thanks for watching. See you next time.